We are live with Michael Mansouri. We are not lying when we say that Michael is known as one of the industry's most knowledgeable and inventive technicians in 2D, 3D, virtual reality, everything. He's the co-founder of Radiant Images, an LA-based rental house and hub of digital cinema innovation focusing on capturing and delivering VR content. And Robert actually has sort of a fun nickname for Michael.
When we were putting the show together, I thought the first person we needed to talk to was Mr. Wonka. Okay. I look at Radiant Images as the Willy Wonka film innovation. Yeah. You guys just do amazing stuff, and you, sir, are very much there as a leader, not only doing this innovative stuff, but working with camera companies, but working with content creators like myself and my students. You've been supportive to the community, and we wanted to hang out with you as much as possible.
Oh, so we hope you like your nickname.
Yeah, Mr. Wonka.
I do, but I heard that the TV adds like another 15 pounds to you. Is that
you
true?
look great. Well, we're now doing MR right now. The mixed reality is like the Snapchat.
I don't
filter.
think I was.
That's only why I look like I have makeup on.
Yeah. You don't know this, but you got the Snapchat puppy ears.
Oh, is that okay?
That's what we did. That's where we are with the state of the industry.
So I just noticed on TV I look much bigger. Actually, I'm not this big in real life. I'm actually 150 pounds. Very skinny. Yeah.
Those are not alternative facts.
There's definitely alternative facts. It's good to be friends. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Yeah, so I got many questions. You got many questions?
Yeah. One of our
very like the Yoda for us.
Yes. One of our very first questions is sort of taking us back a week to VRLA. Robert noticed that you were one of the only 360 booths there, and we were sort of curious where you see 360 going, why you think that you were one of the only ones, and what's next?
You know, what's next is all determined by people's imaginations. So, you know, we show the world's content creators bigger than real life. We don't show it as life. And I think virtual reality at times has been captured as real life, but there are content creators that actually take it beyond that. They dream bigger, they make it even bigger than life. And we want to celebrate that. That's our entire mission, is to give content creators really like safety so that they don't have to fail, or they can experiment. And if you really talk to most directors and actors, what they want to feel is that they're safe, that they could make bold statements without looking like it's no offense, like a student project. You know, they want to do these amazing concepts that show that's bigger than real life. And what Radiant's been focused on is how do we create that tone, in cinematic tone. And it's being developed. What we've seen in the past is that we're constantly seeing content that is not as high visual as our 2D is. Mm-hmm. We don't have the same visual aesthetic as 2D does in virtual reality. That's changing. You know, with camera manufacturers that are mainly focused on not just putting cameras as close as possible together, or making as cheap as possible, or just coming up with solutions that are not relatable with filmmakers. I think that's been the major breakthrough. And there are companies like Zcam that we found that has that vision. They see that it's not just about capturing, it's about the visual aesthetic. The visual aesthetic that we're used to has to be portrayed in virtual reality as well.
Well, one of the things I noticed is that Kinzen gave a shout out to you and your work with Zcam, but you've worked with Insta360 and Jaunt is there and Diozo. Why do they all go to you?
Well, it's not about us going to each other. For us, what we look at is that there is not one and a box solution. We always have to think. I mean, content creators don't think in a form of a box. They think with biggest imaginations. Sometimes the solution is a simple 2-camera shoot, with just 2 cameras, and sometimes it just requires a 1 camera where you move it nodally. So what Radiant's been focused on is being completely technology agnostic and really serving the needs of the content creators. And what we look at is not what cameras you want to shoot with. We want to really understand how do you want to deliver. What's your post-production budget?
Yeah, but I'm going to interrupt you because you're talking about how you serve the community, and that's essential. And someone who's renting out gear, that's great. But you're shaping the industry. Camera manufacturers are going to you, and they're picking your brain because you're like this really unique bridge. Mm-hmm. Am I overselling it? Are you underselling it? I feel like you've got an interesting role there.
I mean, in content creation, as directors and content creators, it's all about collaboration.
Yeah.
So we learn a lot by collaborating with people that see it differently. And that's how breakthroughs happen. It doesn't happen in a bubble. It doesn't happen here. It happens outside of even NAB. It goes to content creators that are experimenting in medical professions, or how we do use these tool sets for other things. So we've had a very fortunate opportunity to collaborate directly with camera manufacturers. At NAB, we're collaborating, and we built and captured content for Canon that's being projected in a dome, and which is, I think, one of the most interesting ways of seeing virtual reality, because it's not the solitude experience anymore. That's another breakthrough. We don't have to see things in a headset. We could also view it in a shared experience around us, bigger than life.
Yeah.
Bringing, the time lapse from Moab Desert to here, and I think that's where the breakthroughs happen. We've also had an opportunity to collaborate with Sony. Sony approached us about a couple months ago and asked to develop our virtual reality rig system. So what we decided to do is, instead of making one specifically for one camera manufacturer, we're going to make it so that it's adaptive to how content creators create. They don't say, I'm just going to shoot everything on one brand camera. You guys don't do that, right? You guys choose the cameras based on what you're shooting. So,
but I love that Sony came to you to do the rig, and you are the R&D for the industry.
Yeah.
Sorry, you wanted to ask me.
And I have a question about, so I know you said you don't want to put, content creators don't want to put anything in a box, and we all have multiple cameras, but for people sort of just getting started, if they have a budget of 1K, 5K, 10K, what sort of cameras are you recommending?
So I think now we have to basically flip the script. You don't select the camera. You select the delivery content. You select, all right, I want to deliver this onto this platform. This is my post-production budget. The reason why is, you could rent a camera, you can buy a camera for $500, but that will actually cost you more in delivery. The solutions that Zcam has is amazing, because it's all optical flow. It's all based on computational stitching, which means I don't have to go to a post-production facility. That means I can do this by myself. That enables and empowers content creators to also not worry about things they're not familiar with. So having the back end as a solution is very important, because we've seen so many projects just die in post because they just use the wrong camera. They select the camera and they don't select how they're going to deliver this. And for producing, it's the entire scope. It's concept to delivery. So now we have to think about delivery and then go back to capture.
Can you give us like a practical example of a post-production issue that could have been solved by choosing a better camera?
All the time. People want to shoot close, they select a camera, and they have nothing but stitch errors and geometry errors, and these are very costly in post, because you're not fixing one camera. It's magnitude by multiple cameras. And again, you're working against laws of physics. There's only so much you can come close with certain cameras. So camera selection, based on your post budget, is very critical. So there are camera manufacturers that what they're doing, like, again, Zcam, Ozo, Jaunt, those camera manufacturers, what they're focusing on is a true end-to-end solution. It's not just the camera, it's the camera all the way to post. And that is a best method, I think, for early people that are coming in. And then from there, we could start experimenting by creating your own crazy rigs and stuff like that, because there are, again, some features and functions that you might want to do and express yourself that it might be the maximum capacity from the camera manufacturers.
So you hold this really unique space of working with all these cameras, and no camera is perfect. I wonder if you feel comfortable enough, even though Kinson might still be in the room, to say the pros and cons of the Zcams and the pros and cons of Insta360 rigs, or the pros and cons of the Jaunt and Ozo. Like, what would you say? Like, if someone's like, tell me,
Well,
one positive, one negative, if you feel comfortable about that.
I do. It's not about that, because look, again, as content enablers, we want to make sure that people are able to have tools to express themselves. So, to answer your question, I don't think that it's the cameras are not being perfect. It's just we don't think that way. Our capacity of creating is not based on having restrictions. And if you look at history of cinema, it was all these breakthroughs. It was constant breakthroughs because people said you cannot cut, you cannot pan a camera. And guess what happened? People cut cameras, they moved cameras. All those breakthroughs happened because people refused to live in that box, right? And in virtual reality, we have boxes. And the first thing that happens is when we don't understand what it is, what is this thing, we try to classify and identify it by giving its name. Like it is this and that's that. So going back to your question of, you know, what's again, it always goes back to the creative mind.
Right.
And we don't want to limit that. We don't want to say that you need to use this particular camera because, you know, Jaunt and Zcam, they all have their need and purpose for what you're trying to do. And not knowing, it's like saying I want to build a house. Well, what kind of house? Where are you know? So that's the right tool.
Okay.
But if you select a tool, always say this is the only camera selection I want to go with. Your solutions might be less broad.
Absolutely. And then I have a general question. We were talking about all of the issues of post-production, stitching errors, all of those things. Do you think that stitching is going to be around for too much longer? What timeline do you give on the life of stitching as we know
we
it?
hear folks come in to get a lecture in my class, like stitching, the pain. But once they've moved up to Jaunt or other services, they're like,
or even, you know, auto stitching coming through more and more. Like,
so yeah, I mean, there's definitely different methods. Computational stitching is amazing because what it allows us to do is capture and automate that entire process. Because in the past, you know, I've had to stitch content I've captured. You have had to too. It is.
And I fixed that horizon. Remember I showed you that movie?
Yeah,
I fixed it last night.
Yeah. So what it does is the creative part. There isn't that much creativity in stitching. You have a creative editor, and without a great editor, you're not going to get the tone of the story that you want. So the stitching is not an absolute critical portion of the content creation or creativity. It's just a manual labor. So,
That's a good way of putting it.
so
It's not a craft.
it's not a craft.
I mean, there's problem solving.
Yeah, it's a problem solving. There is some sort of craftsmanship because you have to understand, you know, laws of physics and how you can blend these. But the computer also is not the perfect solution either because sometimes you want to do something creative. So to broadly say that stitching is completely eradicated, I don't think that's going to happen because there's going
Ever or for real?
ever because there are going to be content creators that want to really push the boundaries of what's possible, and they're going to bring cameras as close as possible. They're going to move them, and they're going to do things that are going to break the stitch, and they want to do things that a computer or an algorithm cannot do. So to blankly say that it's gone, no. But the tool sets that we have now, which is the complexity of stitching, the worrisome of how we're going to put this together in a timeline, that gets automated and it gets much faster. And for a lot of the content that delivery platforms you're going to, it's perfect. Some kind of creators need the next level, and that requires stitching, and it takes careful blending and doing that aspect as well.
How many NABs have you been to? What number is this?
Man, that's a tough question. I don't remember. I think this is like my 10th or 12th NAB.
And what have you noticed is different? I mean, like from Kinson last year bringing a prototype to now bringing his third iterated camera. Like, what's the difference when you roam around?
Well, I got to say that one thing. I'm not saying that just because Kinson was here, but that is very impressive. We saw Kinson last year, and he had a bullet time rig, right? And we're like, wow, that's great for synchronization. It's a small camera. And we walked up to him and said, hey, are you interested in creating a virtual reality camera system? And he goes, well, here it is. He had one in his pocket, and he showed us content from it. And we're like, man, this is pretty impressive. And same time this year now, he doesn't have just one camera. He's got a Pro version and a Pro 3D version. So it's very impressive how fast they're able to ramp this up.